Lovely. Lovely. So coming down onto your back, and just take a moment to get yourself comfortable in whichever position is suitable for you. So you can either have your legs long or your legs bent. Let your arms rest wherever's comfortable for you. And as always, just take a moment to arrive. Lovely. And just notice what stuff you've sort of brought with you into the practice. What's the mental state at the moment? You know, have you brought in any worries, any plans for later? Any problems, any issues, any excitements? Whatever's going on in the head, just take a moment just to acknowledge anything that might distract you from your practice. Just acknowledge what's been the focus of your mind. And then put all that stuff to one side for the next hour. So give yourself permission now to be selfish. This is your time, your precious yoga time, a time to just come back to base, reconnect back to yourself again. Remember who you are. We have all these different roles that we play, these different responsibilities and duties. It's important just to come back to base, back to you. Take a few breaths, breathing in, breathing out. Just a few conscious breaths, just finding your lungs, becoming aware of the sensations of the body as you breathe. Lovely. And then let the breath just return to effortless, natural again. And then we're going to gently bend the knees, bring the knees into the chest. You can hold the legs in with your hands, either around the front of the shins or the back of the knees, wherever's comfortable. Relax the shoulders and just have a little rock from side to side, very gentle, just a little roll from one side of the back to the other, just nice and gentle. Keep the neck and shoulders comfortable. So we know we're stretching out the back and the spine, the central structure of the body. The spinal cord that runs through the center of the spine, get a little stretch. And of course that central energy channel as well, Sushumna Nadi, just sort of opening up the space in the back a little. And if it feels comfortable for you, let your head sort of turn to look to the opposite way, to the knees. So there's a slight sort of rotation in the spine as your knees drift one way, your head can look the other way. Keeping the head in contact with the floor, just sort of rolling through the back of the skull. But if that's not good for you, keep your head centered, that's fine. Keep the shoulders relaxed. Now if you've got one hand on one leg, the other hand on the other leg, maybe your elbows can sort of gauge how far away the floor is. Maybe you can touch the floor with one elbow on one side, maybe on the other side. It's a little bit more of a sort of twisty rotation movement, but you can find the movement that suits you. Just breathing, just moving. And then when you're done, come back to center. Let your feet stand on the floor with the knees bent, and let your back and spine have a moment to passively settle all the muscles. A couple of breaths. And bring your awareness to the whole of the back of the spine. So we spend our whole life going forward, but sometimes we neglect what's going on behind us. So the back of the spine, So now the feet are standing back on the floor. So the spine goes all the way up to the skull between the ears. So the spine goes all the way up into that space at the back of the skull between the ears, and spinal cord connects to the brain. And of course the spine then goes all the way down to the tailbone, which sort of curls up between your buttocks. So the actual tip of the tailbone doesn't touch the floor, it's sort of curled up slightly. Because the spine is made up of these lovely S-shaped curves. So the spine isn't flat and straight. If it was rigid like a pole, we'd have very little sort of springiness. So the S-shaped curves give us a sense of springiness, suspension. And the back of the neck doesn't quite touch the floor. There might be a little bit of space between the lumbar spine and the floor, maybe. You're just noticing the shape of the spine from the tailbone all the way up into the back of the skull. And the parts of the spine that feel heaviness the heaviest on the ground. So maybe through the back of the chest, back of the ribs, maybe down into the sacrum, the back of the pelvis, the heavy part, so you can sort of give in, surrender. Lovely. Just that awareness. We're going to come back to that awareness of the spine in a moment. So again, you can bring your knees back towards the chest, but keep your elbows on the floor. So the hands and feet are free off the ground. So the feet are off the floor, hands are off the floor. And then just circle your hands and circle your feet. Spread the fingers and spread the toes. Just nice, slow, sort of big, easy movements. Exaggerate with your toes, exaggerate with your fingers. So you're just saying hello to your extremities, the hands and the feet. And change direction, go the other way. Sort of working into the ankle joints, working into the wrist joints. You know, the hands and feet do so much work for us throughout the day. Again, is this easy to neglect? What's going on there? Excuse me. Lovely. And then rest your hands lightly on your kneecaps. Right hand on right knee, left hand on left knee. And we'll guide the knees into little froggy circles. So start by bringing the knees together into the chest. Then gently separate the knees, take the knees apart, around in a circle, and back together again. Knees together to the chest, they separate, go around in a circle and back together. So just nice and gentle. Keep your fingertips gently touching the knees. So don't take the knees too far away from you. You don't want to strain the back. We're working into the hips and just getting a little bit of sort of blood flow into the pelvis, into the belly. You can breathe in one way, breathe out the other way, wherever way makes sense for you. So the arms are getting a little bit of a workout as well. The elbows are bending and straightening. Working into the hips, nice sort of graceful movements, just breathing, and then change direction, go the other way. Just coordinating the breath to suit you. Really nice little massage into the belly, again getting that lovely nourishing blood and energy. So our movements in yoga, again, aren't just about the physical body, our muscles and our joints. You know, it's really about getting that energy flow, the life force, the prana. Lovely. And then come back to center and let your feet rest back on the floor with the knees bent, and let your arms come down by your sides, softening your feet, your hips. Lovely. Let your belly relax. Now I'd like you to bring your hands onto the front of the body, around about the solar plexus area, the sort of middle of the spine. So if you come to the navel with your fingertips, if you come up from your navel up towards the breastbone, somewhere in between your navel and your breastbone, so just below your breastbone, you've got the sort of solar plexus area. So the hands can just rest on the body, fingertips pointing in, roughly in line with that solar plexus area. Let the elbows rest on the floor. So it's just an awareness of where the sort of center of the spine is. In Buddhism, they call this the hara, the home. Apparently, when an embryo is conceived, the nervous system is, developed, the cells multiply and the nervous system develops. The spine starts at the center and it grows down to the tail and up to the head. So it doesn't start one end or the other. This is where our sort of physical body starts. This is where life starts, at the center, between lower, the pubic bone and the brain, the sort of middle of the spine. In yoga, we call this Manipur chakra. So this is the third chakra, the third energy center. The first one is down at the pelvic floor. The second one is the navel. The third one is the solar plexus. And they go up to the heart, throat, third eye. So we're here at the third chakra, Manipur. Manipur means the jewel in the city. So again, it's that fire element. And we're just going to do a little bit of breathing work here. So just, again, connect to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Just take a few sort of conscious rounds of breath. And this is also where the diaphragm sits. The diaphragm attaches to all the surface area of the lower ribs, the front, sides, and the back. So as you breathe in, can you sense an expansion around there, around the lower ribs and upper belly a little? And as you breathe out, everything sort of softens back in towards the spine. So as you breathe in, and you fill up into the bottom of the lungs, the diaphragm expands, the lower ribs expand, the belly expands a little. And as you breathe out, everything sort of softens back in towards the spine. And can you also sense the back of the ribs and the sides of the ribs, as well as the front of the body? So the breath is three-dimensional. Again, we're not just front, but the lungs also touch the back of the body and the sides. So there's this three-dimensional expanding from the solar plexus, the lower ribs and upper abdomen as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, it sort of softens back to the spine. And then I'd like you to imagine that there's a subtle cross of energy here. So as you breathe in, energy expands sideways, filling up the body. And as you breathe out and everything contracts into the spine, can you imagine your spine lengthening down to the tail and up to the head at the same time? So as you breathe in, there's an expanding through the ribs, the back, the upper belly. And as you breathe out and everything sort of narrows into the spine narrows and also lengthens, that energetic lengthening up and down at the same time from Manipur chakra. So you're opening up to this lovely subtle cross of energy. You might want to imagine it like little sunbeams, because the solar plexus, the sun center, you'll be sending little sunbeams, little orange rays of light from your center. So the sun center, this is our powerhouse. This is where we develop our self-confidence, our self-belief. This is the place of our healthy ego, where we take action, where we develop our passion, our enthusiasm, a bit of fire, a bit of anger sometimes if we need it. This is our powerhouse. So little sunbeams expanding as you breathe in, the deepening and lengthening through the spine as you breathe out. Keep the face soft, keep the jaws relaxed. And maybe just 2 or 3 more of these breaths here, just tuning in to that sun center, Manipur chakra, your inner power. Lovely. Lovely. And then when you're done, just let your breath return back to normal. So let your body settle again. Lovely. Then we'll bring the knees back into the chest again, nice and carefully. Hold them in. Relax the shoulders. And as the thighs gently come down to the belly, again, relax into the hips and the shoulders. And then you can take your feet up to the ceiling and your arms up overhead. So you're making an L shape. So you can reach the heels to the ceiling and reach the fingers to the wall behind you. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, bend the knees back into the chest. Bring your hands back onto your knees or your shins as the thighs come back into the belly. So as you breathe in, can you imagine energy flowing from the solar plexus through your limbs as you reach up through the feet and overhead with the arms? And as you breathe out, it's as if you're gathering that energy back into your spine, into your center. So the in-breath starts, the movement starts, your feet reach up to the ceiling, the arms float up overhead and behind you. And as you breathe out, again, everything softly folds back into your center. Imagining that coming from the solar plexus. Keep that going, breathing in from the solar plexus up to the feet and the fingertips at the same time. And as you breathe out, just softly recalling that energy back in. Keep the neck comfortable, keep the face gently smiling. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, if it's okay for your neck, as your knees come into the chest, maybe you can lift your head and shoulders, looking towards the knees. You take the head back down, breathing in, again, arms and legs into that L shape. Breathing out, softly curling into your center, using the muscles in the front of the body to lift up the head and shoulders if that's appropriate for you. If not, keep the head on the floor. We'll do 2 more. Keep your outer shell soft and use your inner muscles. So, you know, a clam can't use its outer shell to curl up. It has to use its inner muscle. So using that inner muscle, the solar plexus. Lovely. And then when you're done, after the next one, just let your arms and feet come back down to the floor. Just take a few moments there and settle. Relax the belly and allow that energy to settle as your muscles release. And take your arms out to the sides along the floor, about shoulder level, wherever's comfortable. Maybe more of an A-frame if you've got shoulder issues, be comfortable. Now we're going to do some gentle twists. We got options here, so we'll go through the options. So we'll start with feet on the floor about hip distance apart. After an in-breath, on the out-breath, the knees drift over to the left, the head looks to the right. Just nice and gentle. As you breathe in, head and knees come back to center. And as you breathe out, knees to the right, head rolls to look to the left. So head and knees going the opposite way. Breathing in, back to center. Lovely, keep that going. Breathing out, nice and gentle. Keep the neck and shoulders comfortable. There's no rush. Your knees don't have to touch the floor. Whatever's comfortable for you. Breathing into center, breathing out into the twist. Now you can keep the feet on the floor, or if you want to, you can bring the knees into the chest and make the twist from that position with your feet off the floor. So it's a bit of a different dynamic with your knees into the chest and the feet off the floor. But all the same things apply. Head one way, knees the other way. Keep it gentle. So again, if you'd rather have your feet on the floor, that's fine. If you'd rather with your knees into the chest, that's fine as well. So just get a little rotation, and the rotation again is coming from the solar plexus. So the belly turns one way and the chest turns the other way. So the belly and the chest are sort of turning in opposite directions. Nice and gently. And then the next time the knees go to the left, can you let the knees just rest on that left side? Now, if you need to put cushions underneath the left knee or between the knees, if whatever's comfortable for you. Make any adjustments with your feet. Relax the shoulders. If your right arm is just dangling in air, you might want to bring your right hand and rest it on the right side ribs or the waist, and just let the elbow release towards the floor behind you. If you're happy to have the right arm down on the floor, that's fine. So again, making the adjustments with your legs and feet so you're comfortable in the lower back. Again, the belly is gently turning to the left, but make sure your chest is turning to the right. So again, there's the twist through the Manipur chakra. And take a few breaths into the right side. So the chakras aren't just in the front of the body. The chakras radiate from the center of the body outwards in all directions. So if you take your awareness into the right side, as you breathe in, again, you're filling up that space, expanding. And as you breathe out, just softening a little into the twist, just a millimeter or two into the spine, into the twist. Make sure you're comfortable in the lower back. So again, turning into the ribs, expanding, opening up that lovely elastic quality as you breathe in. And that sense of connecting back to your spine is a sort of lengthening. Make sure your lumbar spine sort of lengthens down through the sacrum and the tailbone, softening into the back of the shoulders and the back of the neck. Just exploring with the breath, natural elastic quality of energy. Lovely. Then to come up, draw in the belly, engage the belly, draw the belly up towards the navel, and then roll back onto your back. Have a little moment on your back, either with feet on the floor or knees into the chest, doesn't matter. And then when you're ready to, let your knees drift over to the right and have a moment to let them land there. Again, if you need a cushion underneath the knees or between the knees, if you need to adjust your feet, again, check in with your lumbar back. Make sure you're not arching and straining your lumbar back. We want a nice soft sort of broadness through the lumbar back. Back of the shoulders releasing into the floor. Again, if you'd rather rest your left hand on your left side, that's fine. Dropping into the back of the heart. So you might snuggle the right shoulder blade under a little. And let your head sort of gaze towards the left a little, so that encourages the chest to turn to the left a little. The belly is turning to the right. Again, nice and long through the lumbar back, nice and comfortable, and breathing into the left side. The elasticity of the ribs, which allows the energy to permeate through the tissues, the cells. Lovely. Lovely. Then we're going to turn the head to look down the right arm. And you can bring your left arm all the way over to join your right arm. So you roll on to your right side into a little fetal position. Have a moment just to let your torso and your spine reorganize itself. And then you can come over onto your hands and knees. And we're going to sit back into pose of the child. So if you're happy to have your knees a little bit wider and your big toes touching, you can drop your bottom back onto your heels and bring your head down. So, you know, if that's an issue for your knees, you can place a cushion on your calf muscles. You can sit back on the cushion. If your head doesn't touch the floor, you can cross your forearms and rest your head on your forearms if you'd rather. Make sure your elbows release to the floor. Let your shoulders relax. And take a moment there. And just notice how the top of the feet and the front of the shins sort of settle towards the ground. The belly, the front ribs settle down towards the thighs. Now take your awareness into the back. And again, the Manipur chakra at the back, the solar plexus, but at the back of the body. As you breathe in, again, that expansion, your back ribs kind of grow away from your spine. And as you breathe out, your spine releases and lengthens and softens towards the floor. There's a subtle movement, but you're really getting into the energy within. Lovely. The spine expands and opens up as you breathe in, bit of space. Soft hugging back in and lengthening and releasing as you breathe out. Lovely. Lovely. And then let's come up into hands and knees, nice and gently. Come up onto all fours. Hands under the shoulders, a little bit of space between the fingers. Again, good quality handprints on the pads of the fingers and thumbs, gently connecting to the ground. Plenty of space across the shoulders for the neck. Knees underneath the hips. Check your knees aren't too wide. And the back of the neck then is up in line with the rest of the spine. Your lower tummy is gently lifting away from the floor to give some support for your lower back. Don't let the lumbar back just collapse here. So your lower belly just gently lifting. The front of the body lifting away from the floor, the back of the body broad, and the spine nice and long. So again, that tailbone is energetically reaching back to the wall behind you, and the crown of the head reaching forward. Again, just be with a couple of breaths there, sensing the Manipur chakra expanding through the sides as you breathe in, sort of narrowing and lengthening through the spine as you breathe out. Keep the face soft, keep the neck and shoulders comfortable. We're going to come into down dog. So as you tuck the toes under, keep the lower belly hollowing. Sort of lean forward over your hands a little so the crown of the head moves forward into the space in front. So you can just find your handprints. Ask your hands to kindly support you. And with the toes tucked under, keep pressing into the hands back slightly past your knees. Keep the shoulders relaxed. Press into the toes and the hands. You can slowly lift the knees, lift the hips, and look back to the feet. Making any adjustments with your feet that you need to. Keep a little bend in the elbows and a little bend in the knees for a moment. Neck and shoulders comfortable. A little scoop out of the belly. And again, as your hands gently support you by pushing into the floor, the tailbone starts to reach up towards the top of the wall behind you. And notice if the crown of the head is going directly in the opposite diagonal direction to the tail. Are you dropping your head? Are you bending your neck back? Can you align the back of the neck in line with the rest of the spine? So the crown of the head is probably reaching towards the space between your hands as the tailbone reaches up in the opposite diagonal position. And as you push through the hands and reach through the tail, then you can take your heel bones a little bit closer towards the floor just to give a little bit of energy through the legs. So the hands are grounded. There's that lovely energy up into the shoulders, up through the torso, scooping it up into the belly, into the pelvis, and through the legs, towards the heels, towards the floor. Breathing, Manipur chakra. Lovely. And then to come down, you can lift the heels, come up onto the ball of the toes. Keep your tummy muscles engaged. Now slowly can you bring your knees to the floor like dust. So putting the brakes on, the knees come to the floor like dust, nice and softly. Lovely. Point the toes behind. Then lengthen your left leg back by sliding your left toes down towards the bottom of the mat, lengthening the left leg. Keep your tummy lifting, and then slide your left toes out to the left. Take your left foot out to the left. Now you can either walk your hands back to your right knee, or if you feel you want to, you can draw in the tummy, take your hips back slightly, and then slide your fingertips softly towards the right knee and up the thigh and bring yourself up. Lovely. Now again, if you need underneath, I'm going to mirror you. If you need anything underneath that right knee, that's fine, a little folded blanket. So your left leg is out, and then I'd like you to turn your left toes and your left knee bends. So your left foot is just turned out to the left a little and your left knee is bent, just to be comfortable. And now check that this right hip is stacked directly over your right knee. You can spread the weight into the top of your right foot, into the toenails, and bring your sort of pubic bone towards the navel a little. So that again, your lower belly is just gently engaged, a little smile in the belly. Lovely. Take your left hand down onto your left thigh, palm faced up, and take your right arm down by your sides. So your left foot is nicely grounded, shoulders are dropping down, a little bit of tone on the belly, that lightness in the heart. Now in the hands, we hold two gifts. In Buddhism, so there's two guardians to the mind, Hiri and Ottappa. Hiri is our conscience, so knowing right from wrong, our morals, and Ottappa is our respect. So imagine you've got Hiri in your right hand, your conscience. So you're just going to gently sweep your right hand up and hold that conscience in your hand just nicely. So you're nicely supported, the belly, the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is, again, our action, what action we decide to take, how we use that fiery energy. And with conscience, again, our good moral standing, we can, make better decisions about our actions. And as you gently lighten up, you can bend a little to the left, very gently, relax the shoulders, draw in the tummy, a little bit of reach up through the right side ribs. And again, the Manipur chakra, so from your right waist, reaching down through the right hip, through the knee, across the top of the shin into the foot, from your right ribs, reaching up, lovely. And then bring the arm back down, lovely. And then we're going to slide the hands down the right thigh, take the hands forward, and then take your left foot forward into a lunge, but slightly out to the left. So your left toe is just slightly turned out to the left. Your left knee is slightly out. It's a little bit of a wider stance. Then bring your fingertips to the floor. Tuck your right toes under. Your left foot is slightly turned out. Lift the right knee and sort of reach your hips and heel back slightly. So your right heel isn't going to touch the floor. We're just reaching back slightly through the hips and the heel, and then bend your left knee forward. So your hips and your right leg and heel are reaching back, and then you can bend your left knee forward. Draw in the tummy, take your right hand onto the floor and bring your left hand onto your left hip. And as you lift the breastbone, keep lifting up through the hips and turn to the left. Turn the ribs to the left, draw in the tummy, roll back the left shoulder. Maybe you can take your left hand up to the ceiling. Lovely. Draw in the belly. Couple of breaths there. And then bring the left hand back down. We're going to come into down dog or hands and knees if you prefer. Or maybe hands and knees first if you'd rather. Again, just settling. Downward facing dog. If downward facing dog is for you, let your knees be a little bit bent and your elbows a little bit bent. A little scoop in the belly. And as you push the floor away with your hands, you get that lovely diagonal reach up into the pelvis through the tailbone. And then the heels release a bit closer to the floor. And the solar plexus, the front ribs, just gathering in a little bit of support there. And then as you lift the heels, how slowly and gently can you bring those knees to the floor? So there's action, but you've got respect for your knees, for your bones. You bring them down nice and gently, that gentle action. Lovely. And then slide your left toes behind, lengthening your left leg. Sweep your left foot out to the left. No, did we? No, we did that side, didn't we? Sorry. Come back onto your hands and knees. So if you slide your right toes back, lengthen out your right leg, and then sweep your right foot out to the right. And again, you can either walk your hands to the left knee or draw in the tummy, take your hips back and just slide your fingertips along the floor to the knee, up the thigh, and bring yourself up. You can bend the right knee and turn your right foot out slightly. Again, find a nice position for that right foot. So that just sort of softens the hip a little. Keep your left hip stacked over your left knee, your left shin bone and top of the foot just gently grounded. Pubic bone comes to the navel, a little bit of a smile in the belly. Back of the right hand on the right thigh. And in your left hand, now we're holding respect. Opata. So again, there's two guardians of our decision making, conscience and respect. So respect for ourselves, respect for others. Because without respect or conscience, then our actions can become selfish or harmful. Through respect, again, we take that left hand up nice and gently, feel a lift through the left side, keep the neck and shoulders comfortable, and then a little bend to the right. So the right elbow just bends in towards your right side or your right hip, but keep nice and long, drawing the belly. And again, from Manipur chakra, there's that length down from the left waist, hip, thigh, down into the left shin bone, and up through the left ribs, keeping it nice and light. And then float the arms back. Lovely. Slide the hands down the thigh. Walk the hands forward. Take your right foot forward into a wide-ish lunge. So again, the foot is turned out slightly. Knee is turned out. Hands or fingertips onto the floor, just under the shoulders. Tuck under your left toes. And as you press down into your right foot, you can lift the left knee. And let's start by taking the hips back. Push your left heel towards the ground. It's not going to touch the floor, it doesn't need to, but we're just sort of reaching back through the hips, through the left thigh, through the left heel, and then bend your right knee forward. Keep your tummy lifting away from the floor. Take your left hand to the floor, right hand onto the right hip. Keep lifting the front of the body up away from the floor, and then as you turn the chest to the right, the left shoulder rolls under. Again, draw in the belly, get the twist from the center of the spine. Again, keep the back of the waist nice and long, using your tummy muscles to support. If you want to do that, right hand can float up. Lovely. So the right hand of respect. And then bring the hands softly down. So downward facing dog, maybe. Step your right foot back, or if you'd rather come to hands and knees first and then transition, that's fine. Little bend in the knees to start. Find the center of the spine so the front ribs sort of gently hug in. There's a bit of support here. A little hollow in the belly. And the tailbone reaches back away from the hands. Where's the crown of the head? And then the heels release a little bit closer to the floor so you feel that energy in the legs, your thigh muscles working the heels a little bit closer to the floor. And then bend the knees a little. We're going to walk the feet just halfway into the hands. So little baby steps, walking your feet to halfway into the hands so your feet, your footprints can ground. And then just soften the wrists. Now you can either walk your hands to your feet, or you can take your hips back slightly and slide your fingertips back to the feet. Relax the wrists, relax the head into your forward bend. And then to come up, we're going to bend the knees, lower the hips, sweep the arms out to the sides and rise up, carrying your two guardians, conscience and respect, reach them up. And then bring the hands to prayer, down to the heart, and have a moment there just to connect to this lovely upright position as I adjust my camera. So have a moment there to experience what it's like now to be upright on your feet. How does your head feel this far off the ground? Take a few breaths. Lovely. Lovely. Give the shoulders a little ease out. Lovely. Excellent. So we're going to ease out the hands a little. So feet are comfortable distance apart for you. So again, I'll mirror you. So arms down by your sides. Let's just start with the left hand. We're just going to make little figure of 8 movements with the left hand. There's very gentle little figure of 8 movements just with the wrist. So the arm remains pretty quiet and it's just the wrist. Little figure of 8 movements, as if you're just sort of stirring a little bit of water, just testing the water with your fingertips. Bit of movement in the wrist and the forearm. And then you can let the movement sort of come into the elbow as well. So can you start to make a little figure of 8 movement with your elbow? So of course the forearm, the wrist and the hand are still involved, but now we've got a bit more focus on the elbow. So it might be a slightly bigger figure of 8 with the hand. And now what if you let your shoulder lead? So your shoulder comes forward, scoops around, the shoulder rolls back, scoops around a figure of 8. So of course the hand now is just describing a little bit of a bigger figure of 8, but the movement's coming from the shoulder. And you sense the shoulder blade at the back, scooping out and forward, scooping out and in, and the collarbone at the front. And then you can just start to make the movements as big as you want. Have a little bend in the knees. So maybe the hand wants to scoop down and up, behind you, over to one side. So let your knees bend. But again, the shoulder is involved. Maybe the ribs, maybe the left ribs are involved, the whole of the left side. Lovely. Keep the knees soft. Lovely. And then I'm going to slowly just start to come back down with the movements, making the movements a little bit smaller. Lovely. Back to the shoulder. Back to the elbow. Back to the hand. And then just settle. And take a moment just to notice how that feels in that left side compared to the right side. Maybe a little bit of sense of spaciousness or lightness, just that it's been worked and opened up. Lovely. And the same with the right hand, so just the hand and the wrist. A little sort of floaty figure of 8 movements, fingertips, wrist. The rest of the arm is pretty quiet. Lovely. And then when you're happy with that, then let the elbow take the lead. So the elbow bone comes forward and turns behind. Again, keeping the shoulder pretty quiet. So just the sort of elbow, forearm, wrist, hand. Lovely. And then when you've got that, then let the shoulder become involved. A little scooping forward and around and back. Lovely. You can keep the elbow and the wrist comfortable. Notice how that feels in the collarbone and the shoulder. Lovely. And then you can start to make the scoops a little bit bigger. Kind of a bend in the knees. So maybe reaching right across to the left, up towards the ceiling, scooping down a little bit closer to the floor behind you. And making kind of aeroplanes, maybe. Nice playful movement. Ribs, shoulder, elbow, wrist. And of course the feet and the knees are very much involved as well. Lovely. Particularly the ribs, the sides, the waist. So just opening up that space, just lightening that space. Connecting the hand to that space of Manipur chakra. And then slowly start to decrease the movements, coming back in gradually into the shoulder again, into the elbow, and then into the wrist. And then just soften, be quiet for a moment, just notice how that feels. So So the hands light, again, the two guardians guiding your decisions, how you act with conscience and respect. Lovely. Now bring the hands onto the pelvis, onto the waist. Just check the time, are we okay? Take the feet a little bit wider, so maybe about shoulder width apart or so. And then we're going to just gently start to pour the weight from one leg to the other. Very gently. Keep a little bend in the knees. So as if you've got water and you're sort of pouring the water over one leg and foot, and the other leg and foot lightens, and then you pour it over to the other. Keep the upper body light, keep the neck and shoulders light. So you're just pouring water from one leg and foot to the other. The other foot may lighten off the floor a little. Just sort of finding your balance. Again, how far do you go over? So again, you're discerning how much effort you put into the movements, finding that balance. Lovely. And then bring yourself back to center. Lovely. And then bring your feet back in. Lovely. So we're going to look at tree balance. Now I'd like us all to find either a bit of wall or a chair, because quite often we're focusing so much on the balance that we forget about the footing. So if you've got a bit of wall, or if you've got a chair or something you can hold on to with your right hand, but make sure that you're still standing upright on your feet. So again, your feet are just underneath your hips. Nice quality footprints. Relax the shoulders. And then you can use your right hand on the wall, just a little bit of support. Ground through the right leg and foot, and just let your left knee lift. Keep your left hand on your left waist or your hip. Relax the shoulder. Now what's happening in this right hip, you can notice here, are you sort of hinging and dumping all the weight into that hip? Can you bring the hip in, sort of suck the side of the hip in, plant down into the supporting leg and foot, bring the tummy in, so you're holding on to something. So you can just find that energy lengthening down through the lower spine, through the tailbone, down into that standing foot. And that knee then can come up. And keep your pelvis level. And then take the foot back down again. Have a moment there just to settle back into your feet. Now that might be where you go with this, is that are holding the leg there. That's fine, particularly if you've got knee issues. But again, ground into your right foot. Draw in the belly and lift that left knee. Relax the shoulders. And then if you want to, you can take hold of your left knee with the hand, hug it in a little bit more towards the chest. Maybe you can slide your hands down the left shin to the foot and take the foot towards the inside of the leg. Now, if you're at the knee, try not to push the foot too much into the knee. It's okay to rest the foot there, but don't go locking back your knee. If you can, bring it onto the inside of the thigh. So when you're holding onto a wall, you might be able to just sort of connect there. But check that your hips are still level. Check that this left hip isn't reaching out. Keep your hips level. And then maybe you can take the hand away from the wall, bring both hands onto your hips. Again, grounding through the right leg and foot. And then turn the palms and your two guardians, like little birds in branches. Your arms are like branches. And you're just holding the two little birds, conscience and respect. And the Manipur chakra, again, breathing into that space, Manipur chakra expanding as you breathe in and lengthening through the spine as you breathe out. So your actions are guided, again, by those two guardians, Hiri, Ottappa, consciousness, respect. Lovely. And then bring the hands back onto the waist or the hips and release the leg back down. Lovely. Again, have a moment just to soften, relax the belly, let all that energy go back down through the legs and the feet, So everything just reorganizes itself. Lovely. Then again, holding this time with your left hand, again, either a chair or a wall, or just something that allows you to have a little bit more support as you ground through your left leg. Can you lift your right knee up and relax the shoulders? So although you're using the wall or the support, again, organize so your left leg is nice and strong, your hips are level, your tummy is drawing in. You're getting that lovely length through the spine, that lightness in the heart. And then take the foot back down again. Hopefully just settle if you need to adjust where you are. So again, that might be where you stay. If that's where you stay, that's fine. You know, you're using those deep hip flexors, the psoas muscles, just to keep the leg there. So that's fine. If you're happy to, again, as you lift the leg, maybe you can take hold of the knee, give it a little hug in. Maybe you can reach down to the foot and place the foot to the inner thigh. So sometimes when we're not focusing too much on balancing, we can sometimes get the foot there a little bit higher, but don't worry if it's not, wherever is fine. Again, check that your hips are level. So bring the hand onto that hip. Make sure your hips aren't turning to the bent knee side. Keep your hips level. Draw in the tummy. Relax the shoulders. And then maybe you can bring your hands onto your waist and your hip. Again, using your right leg. So again, that power from Manipur chakra, sending it down through the spine into that standing leg, as if your leg is an extension of your spine, rooting down like a tree. Sending the roots down from your center. But then you can open up your branches. Those two little birds, respect, conscience. A couple of breaths there. So that power in your center, used wisely, decision making. And then bring the hands back down and release the foot back to the floor. Lovely, have a moment there. Again, just soften the belly, let everything reorganize itself, all those energies. Lovely. And come down through a forward bend, so settling your feet, about hip distance. Reach the arms up, a nice little reach up. Feel the ribs lift, a little bit of length in the belly and the waist. Bring the hands together and down through the midline. We're going to bow, so bend the knees. Take your hips back and bowing with reverence down to the earth. Drop the head, hands to the floor. Lovely. And then keeping your feet where they are, we can walk the hands forward like a little bear into downward facing dog, but keep your heels on the floor just to have a little bit of a stretch through the heels. So try and keep your heels rooted as you take your hands forward. Just for a little bit of a stretch through the heels after the balance. Those ankle muscles having a little release. And then walk your feet back a little bit further and come into a plank. So as your feet walk up back a bit further, lifting your shoulders up and forward over your hands. Now keep your lower belly lifting away from the floor. Keep the front of the body lifting away from the ground. So don't let the hips collapse down. Draw in the belly, and again, the crown of the head is reaching to the wall in front. And as you reach back your heels and draw in the tummy, that lovely diagonal line through the spine. And then bring the knees softly down. Bend the elbows, come down onto your belly, your chest, your head, laying down on your front. And just take a moment to have a little rest. Maybe give the earth a little hug. If you want to take your arms out or bring your hands under the head, whatever is comfortable for you. Have a moment just to arrive once again back on the earth. Lovely. Just experience that settling. Couple of breaths. Can you sense the movement of the diaphragm. Again, the front of the body, the belly, the ribs expanding a little as you breathe in, and the whole of the spine softly releasing to the earth as you breathe out. Lovely. Now we're going to end in a seated meditation. So if you want to have a little stretch out here, or if you want to roll onto your back for a moment and have a little stretch out that way, then please do whatever you need to do, nice and slowly. And then when you feel ready to, unless you want to lay down on the ground, it's your practice. If you just want to lay on the floor, that's fine. Or if you're happy to join us in seated, then bring yourself gently up. When you're ready, take your time. If you need a cushion to sit on, or you want to put your socks or a blanket over you, just get yourself comfortable and organized. Lovely. If you'd rather sit in a chair, that's fine as well. Lovely. Settling, take the back of the hands onto your knees or your thighs, so the palms are just softly turned up. And the elbows can bend in towards your sides, just underneath the shoulders. You might want to let your index fingers and your thumbs touch into Gyan Mudra. So again, Gyan is the wisdom mudra. So we have conscience and respect in the hands as little guardians as we connect to our higher consciousness, our wisdom, the Buddhi mind. Soften your eyes, close the eyes if you're happy to. Any frowns in the forehead just melt away, and let those lower jaws just hang open a little bit. The weightiness to the lower jaw, but the lips softly touch and the tongue rests comfortably in the mouth. Softening down through the top of the shoulders, on the skin, on the torso, sliding down through the belly and the back of the waist, down into your groins, into your sit bones, little tree roots settling downwards, whole of your spinal cord, rooting down. And then again, bring your awareness gently up to Manipur chakra, the solar plexus area. As you breathe softly, can you again use your imagination a little to experience the gentle expanding as you breathe in, the sides, the front and the back, like a barrel. And as you breathe out, that gentle connection back into your spine, that little length through the spine. So that subtle cross of energy expanding outwards as you breathe in, and deepening back into the spine as you breathe out. And of course, that's not just restricted to the body. The energy permeates out through the bones, the tissues, the skin, into the space around you, your subtle energy field. Expanding and deepening. And those beams of light, those little sunbeams from Manipur chakra, your sun center, you can start to send those beams of light out into various directions, not just horizontally or vertically, but diagonally. It's like a 12-pointed star from your center, expanding and deepening. These 12 pointed stars, a source of guidance, direction, your decision making. There's 2 guardians either side, helping the moral compass. And then allow those little beams of light just to start to come back in towards your center. Your awareness and those beams of light coming back to your center. And that lovely little ember of light remains always glowing, always there to connect to if you need that guidance, direction. And then let your hands softly come together into a prayer position at your heart center. A lovely connection right and left. The whole of the spine. A connection back to you again. And then as you bow your head softly, gently, and just start to blink your eyes open, just to look down at your hands, just allowing your focus to gently return to the light. And give your hands a lovely smile. And as you open your hands like a little book, you'll see your hands smiling back at you. And as you raise your head, maybe we can all share our smiles with each other. Lovely. Thank you, everyone. You take your time.